He's effectively a pawn, isn't he? He's being held as part of a show of strength by the Putin regime.
The leading articles in the Times this morning highlights what has just been this absolutely extraordinary and awful story. Today is 100 days now since the Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich was detained, on suspicion of spying in Russia. We don't know exactly what the case is against him, how long he'll be held for. He's only managed to be visited by the American ambassador twice. He's supposed to be with high spirits and okay health. But this is an extraordinary story, Sandy. And if anything, I'm surprised at the lack of coverage about this.
Yeah, I think some might suggest it's a little bit of sort of navel gazing from us and the other journalists that we, continue to publicise these sort of issues. I was actually at a big training conference this week on what we teach young journalists. One of my jobs is as a journalism educator, and there was a very vibrant discussion about the nature of risk when you work as a reporter. Much risk strategy in any company is about preventing or mitigating risk. Of course, in journalism, very often you run towards that risk, either literally or metaphorically, because of the importance of the work that's being done and the fact that we only know certain things about what's going on in life because some individuals do their job. Now, with Evan Gershkovich, he was just doing his job. He was just trying to give us information about what was happening. He's been accused of espionage. In itself, that's awful. But then you factor in the fact that he's spent this 100 days, pretty much all of it, in solitary confinement, which just must be absolutely awful, being cut off from the world. The American ambassador's only been allowed to visit him twice, and he's being held there for just trying to talk about, shed light on what was happening. And, in this wider context of the risks that journalists are taking, 10 reporters have been killed so far in this current year, just trying to do their job and tell the rest of us what's going on in the world. And I applaud the fact that this story is still being given some prominence in this way.
Yeah, and I think at this point, no sign of what might secure his release. The Times analysis here is the Putin regime has a long history of intimidating, incarcerating and indeed murdering journalists. Such brutality is a sign of weakness and guilt, not strength and righteousness.
Absolutely. And of course, he's effectively a pawn, isn't he? He's being held as part of a show of strength by the Putin regime. And there's very little that can be done to try to persuade someone like Putin to let him go. The prospects are pretty bleak, I would think, for when we might see him and hear from him again.
Yeah, and that campaigning intensifies.
If you enjoyed that, there is plenty more. Join me, Rosie Wright, for Early Breakfast on Times Radio, Monday to Friday, 5 till 6 a.m.